Hello everyone! It's time to go over what else I saw in November that I didn't already tell you about. Let's jump into it. Movie number 1 is a viewer recommendation, 1952's Captive Women, also known more accurately and less provocatively as 1,000 Years From Now. It's a speculative, post-apocalyptic drama about the state of society in the wake of nuclear war. In what used to be New York, two communities now exist: the Norms, who govern by might, and the Mutates, whose bodies have been ravaged by radiation. This low-budget film, starring Robert Clark and Margaret Field, certainly has parallels to other films like The Time Machine and Threads. There's an intriguing reversal of expectations here, in that you'd figure the Norms, with their light, flowy clothing and boisterous celebrations, would be the good guys, whereas the deformed Mutates living underground wearing solemn black would be bad. But it's a topsy-turvy world in the year 3000. The Norms have embraced a hedonistic lifestyle, while the honorable Mutates are keeping faith alive in the face of diminishing hope. The film mostly relegates its characters to walking around in the woods, and the script is occasionally bogged down by awkwardly phrased dialogue and lengthy archaic speeches, but the story's an interesting one that uses biblical allegories and themes and a touch of Shakespeare to tell a cautionary tale of our possible future if man doesn't get his act together. Movie number 2 is 1951's The Scarf. John Ireland stars as an escapee from a hospital for the criminally insane who's lost his memory and doesn't know whether he's guilty of a crime or not. Ostensibly, this sounds like yet another amnesiac man-on-the-run noir, but it's really a psychological thriller that defies predictability and devotes a surprising amount of time to ethics and philosophy. The director, German-born writer E.A. Dupont, also penned the screenplay, and I get the impression that the whole thing was his brainchild. As the writer, he knew how important the monologues and the wordless moments were, so as the director, he had control and was able to allow himself to take his time with those moments. The result, I think, is a noteworthy film with a good script, good design, photography, performances, and it features a gallery of colorful side characters who make the most of every second they're on screen with subtle little bits and great interactions. It's not your average B picture. It manages to convey a deeper sense of significance despite a modest budget and small cast. I thought it was pretty good. So I was shocked to learn afterward that this movie was a huge flop when it came out. It received scathing reviews from critics who mocked the style and the extent of the dialogue and the fact that the characters were plain, regular folks. Well, I couldn't disagree more. To me, it was the conversations and the people that made this special. I liked all the quirky touches that gave it flavor. Without those very things the critics disliked, the film really would have been just another generic crime drama about an amnesiac wanted by the police. So, who cares about critics? I really liked this. Movie number 3 is a viewer recommendation, 1960's Tormented. Richard Carlson stars as a jazz pianist groomed-to-be who finds himself haunted by his possessive ex-girlfriend whose death he opted not to prevent. This thriller was produced, directed, and partially written by Bert I. Gordon, a little departure from the monster and mutant flicks he's most known for. At first I thought the story seemed a little one-note. We got into the plot very quickly, and after a while I was like, is this all it's gonna be? But later the film makes some bold moves, and those dark twists save it from being just a run-of-the-mill vengeful ghost story. Richard Carlson carries most of the film, acting alone in many scenes. Because he's Richard Carlson, perennial good guy, you find yourself siding with him even when he makes some shady decisions. It helps that the ex, played by Julie Redding, is a nasty piece of work. The movie does a nice job developing Carlson's friendship with his fiance's little sister, who's infatuated with him. The girl does a great job, and I found out later she's Susan Gordon, Bert Gordon's daughter. I also liked the blind landlady played by Lillian Adams, who perceives the weird situation unfolding long before anyone else has an inkling that something's amiss. As for the effects, there are a few that are pretty cheesy, but others are quite good. The film is far from perfect, but taken as it is, it's more than sufficiently entertaining. Movie number 4 is Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, which was produced, directed, and co-written by Guy Ritchie and released earlier this year. Set in Afghanistan in 2018, where U.S. soldiers are regularly conducting searches for explosives, a local interpreter and a master sergeant find themselves pursued through the mountains by ruthless Taliban who want to capture them. I thought this was a really good film. Jake Gyllenhaal as the Master Sergeant delivers another solid performance, and co-star Dar Salim is excellent as the Afghan interpreter considered a traitor by some of his people. Their strong performances are bolstered by a creative, moving score and vivid photography. Honestly, I don't know if it's because we streamed it in UHD on Prime or it's just the way the movie was shot, but the picture was extremely clear. It was like, wow. Ultimately, it's a great story about making good on your promises no matter what. If you say you're going to do something for somebody, keep your word. Given the setting and all the talk of abandonment, the analogy seemed obvious, and Ritchie removes all doubt at the end, and I was impressed that he didn't mince words. Movie number 5 is a viewer recommendation, 2020's Greyhound. Tom Hanks stars as a naval commander on his first assignment who has to lead a convoy of cargo ships across the North Atlantic, whose icy, treacherous waters are full of German U-boats. I remember seeing an ad for this back in 2020 and thinking, oh, that looks like it might be good. Too bad I'll never get to find out because I refuse to buy a subscription to Apple TV Plus just to watch it. Well, here we are. I've got a subscription to Apple TV Plus for a while, and I'm gonna make the most of it. I made out a list of things I would like to check out while I have it, and Greyhound was at the top. The good news is, even if I don't like anything else I watch on there, I was not disappointed with this. Hanks himself adapted the screenplay from a novel by C.S. Forester, and while it does get off to a bumpy start, in my opinion, once the situation heats up, the action is almost non-stop. It's very much a period piece, but it's also modern enough to appeal to contemporary audiences. It's well filmed, the camera moving stealthily around the ship's cramped quarters to keep up with the men, and the CGI looks really nice. The film's an intense ride right up to the end, and a shout-out goes to composer Blake Neely, who came up with a creepy motif for the German wolf pack that helps convey how menacing this unseen enemy is. Number 6 is 1988's The Tenth Man, a TV movie that begins in France 1941, where Anthony Hopkins plays a meek lawyer who is picked up at random by the Nazis and thrown into prison. To save his own skin, he makes a bargain with a fellow captive, a decision he'll quickly come to regret. This gripping drama is based on a book by Graham Greene, so I wasn't too surprised when it turned out to be packed full of twists and moral quagmires. Hopkins is great as the haunted survivor of a German prison whose repulsive act of cowardice weighs more heavily on him than the years of brutality and starvation. His performance is quiet but expressive, so more or less what you expect from Hopkins, which is a good thing. It's no easy feat to make your viewer feel sympathy for a man whose initial character is weak, foolish, and self-serving, but he does it. He's supported by solid performances from Kristen Scott Thomas and a particularly wily Derek Jacobi, and Timothy Watson plays a small but pivotal part. The movie tends to be a bit of a downer, but it's compelling and intriguing, and I liked it. I won't say more than that, lest I give too much away. Movie number 7 is 1950's Convicted, a crime drama in which Glenn Ford plays a young man who accidentally kills a guy in a bar fight. Unlucky for him, the victim's father is a VIP. Roderick Crawford plays the district attorney who does his job and sends him to prison despite misgivings about the fairness of his sentence. Years later, their paths cross again when the DA becomes the new warden. This is a prison movie more than a mystery or a courtroom drama, with Ford's character struggling not to become bitter and embrace the criminal's code of honor as time drags on. Though it does sound kinda like a movie that might have come out 15 years earlier, it stays fresh with neat pacing and an engaging script. I appreciated the bits of humor we got, and the expansion of secondary and tertiary characters, like the quibbling pair of cops, Ford's heartbroken father, Crawford's paranoid housekeeper, and Ford's seasoned cellmates who try to keep him out of trouble. As for the leads, I thought Ford and Crawford played off each other nicely. It's funny to me that both of these actors were, from time to time, cast as hardened, tough guy types, yet they both had faces that could soften into incredibly friendly, winsome expressions. This was ideal casting, I would say, and the film also features Dorothy Malone as Crawford's criminal justice-minded daughter. What surprised me most was how tense things got. I don't usually feel this on edge while watching old crime dramas, but they did a fantastic job building suspense in the second half. And that's what else I saw in November. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can find a list of the titles and how I watched them in the description. Let me know your thoughts on any of the movies I talked about here today in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.